Ladies and gentlemen, this is truly amazing news. Truly phenomenal news. Hit subscribe to this channel right now, ladies and gentlemen, to my super chat. Your support is greatly appreciated. Let me know how you feel regarding Kash Patel. Love Kash Patel. I think he's fantastic, awesome, intelligent, has the experience to lead an intel agency. New York Post ex-defense official Kash Patel emerges as top contender for Central Intelligence Director. Then you have the wonderful MSNBC Kash Patel appointment to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or the Central Intelligence setting off alarm bells in the intelligence community. Well, that's fantastic politically for President Trump. Democrats have lived by the intelligence community. Their political demise for the next 4 years, maybe 12 years with 8 years of Vance, will be an intelligence community that investigates or that gives assessments or intelligence reports on all the officials who potentially broke the law going after Trump. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. It is against the law to utilize a government post to deliberately frame, set up, or go after Trump. Now, if the intelligence community under President Trump comes to the conclusion or assessment that the previous intel chiefs went after Trump illegally, what do you think Democrats are going to do? They're going to say, oh my God, when we were going after Trump, the intelligence community was apolitical, nonpartisan, completely unbiased, and they only cared about the future of the country. Now, the intel community is firmly under the control of Trump loyalists. Brennan and all the others, they weren't loyalists of the Democratic Party. They were unbiased patriots who just tried to protect us from low inflation and low interest rates and an end to never-ending quagmires with Trump, all the terrible things Trump did, which got him the Senate, the House, the popular vote, the presidency, the Supreme Court. Hit subscribe to this channel right now.
And Kash, she used the statute, the executive law. It gives her, rather than, the courts and grand juries giving her subpoena power, she just had the subpoena power to fish through private documents, and then she could bring a civil fraud suit for inaccurate statements discovered in the process. This law, people have never challenged it because they're afraid of the repercussions of going after an attorney general. This could go all the way to the Supreme Court on the lack of constitutionality.
The Supreme Court would overturn the conviction. I think the judge will likely drop the conviction, which will be hilarious. He wins the popular vote, and the only thing they ever had against Trump, he was convicted. He was convicted. Oh. And the judge is like, we tried to bend, well, whatever. The judge is like, conviction dropped. How convenient. How convenient. Why do you think the judge would drop, even think of dropping the hush money conviction? Because it was complete nonsense. Even FEC chairman Hans A. von Spakovsky, Trey Traynor, Bradley Smith. I love Hans A. von Spakovsky is awesome. You should, if you listen to him, I believe he's in the Heritage Foundation, but you say his name 30 times over. It's fantastic. Hans A. von Spakovsky. These are former federal election commission chairmen. They've all stated there was 0 laws broken. Donald Trump could have paid Stormy with dollar bills. He didn't even need Michael Cohen to be a conduit. It still would not have broken campaign finance laws. Unlike the Steele dossier that broke campaign finance laws, and the DNC and Clinton campaign were fined because it was complete nonsense. Democrats believe these hoaxes, these fake, phony, absurd, fabricated, contrived fantasies. Trump said, that's what Trump said. Trump said, fine people. No, he didn't. He said they should be condemned. Look at the context and look at the entire transcript. Don't just read a headline from an anti-Trump publication. Trump was a Kremlin operative. No, he wasn't. In fact, the Mueller probe found not only zero evidence, the only thing complete imbeciles can say is the rebuttal is, there was opposition research. Yeah, and so Clinton lost Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. By the way, Trump got every battleground state again. But so Clinton lost Wisconsin because of opposition research. All you have to ask is how many Americans changed their decision from Clinton to Trump because they didn't know, because of opposition research? How many would have had they known that Trump had possibly a one-night thing with Stormy? Nobody would have cared. If anything, he probably would have gotten votes. Nobody would have cared. His family loves him. That's what counts. It's an issue between him and his wife, and everything's fine. So, and he says he didn't. So whatever, whether he did or he didn't, doesn't matter. He can't be convicted for that.
Well, you're right. It's absolutely unconstitutional. It's going to get appealed. I think all the decisions and verdicts will be put on stay, as we call it. But as you showed in this video, as a prosecutor's code of conduct under the law, you're supposed to present the case and the facts to the law and the court without bias. She just presented herself time and time again during her campaign that the only thing she had was bias and animosity for President Trump. And her outcome was predetermined. She wanted to remove him from New York and the ballot. As President Trump said, this is all about election day interference. And here's the irony of it all. A figure like Bernie Madoff, who's an actual criminal, when he was convicted, he was barred from practicing in the securities field ever again. But no one barred him from conducting business in the state of New York. Are we to believe this decision, that President Trump is somehow worse than Bernie Madoff?
Any prosecutor also that coordinated with the Biden White House possibly committed a crime. This is not rocket science. So when Democrats recoil in indignation and they say, my God, our righteous attempt to imprison Trump, our righteous and noble attempt to imprison this madman, the Orange Menace, is being overturned by Kash Patel and Trump. Just ask a very simple question. Was there coordination, political in nature, between the Democratic Party operatives? You don't even need officials within the DNC. You don't even need officials within the Biden administration. Operatives, attorneys, operatives, whatever, conduits, intermediaries. We saw that when they set up Trump. If there is coordination of any kind, that is a criminal act. Because the prosecutions were supposed to be independent and predicated upon simply the rule of law, which, of course, they were not.
And this political prosecutor, Jackal, wants to ban him from the state of New York, who he's brought millions and millions of jobs to?
Yeah. No, the judge said, he's not Bernie Madoff, that he had to evoke that fraudster's name, that con artist's name. Go ahead, Charlie.
And I think the most important thing is the thing that you said a minute ago, Dagan, and that is that all of this is happening at a time when, and you alluded to this, Kash, as well, where you can't walk down the street in New York without, having a crime committed against you. It seems like people are raiding stores. You can't go into a store and buy something because crime is so out of control here, and yet you have the New York Attorney General spending, and who knows how much money she spent pursuing this case. It's got to feel like you're in bizarro world. It's like a three-ring circus. There's not a circus.
The only thing that comes to mind is popular vote. Democrats were so giddy and they were so gleeful. We indicted Trump. Well, what did that lead to? Everyone knows that you were utilizing the justice system, state and federal, to go after your direct political rival. Now Trump is going to use existing statutes to see if you broke the law in doing so. Okay? Trying to imprison Trump for political purposes is against the law. So when he indicts people, the rebuttal will be, he's a tyrant. It's like, no, you deliberately in an unconstitutional and likely illegal manner, utilized state and federal laws against a man that was innocent, that did not try to foment a rebellion. That's another thing. You have to be the greatest imbecile on the planet to think that Trump tried to lead a rebellion against the United States with people he never met.
It's ridiculous enough to even come up with an analogy to compare all this to.
Well, I think you hit one of the main talking points that I overlooked here. Her and the mayor in Chicago have something in common. They live in their own universe of protected influence. Yeah. The security details that the taxpayers kick in the state of New York for Letitia James.
All these Democratic Party politicians have security details armed as they push laws that disarm Americans. Fact. There's no rebuttal to that. Just own it. There's zero rebuttal. You don't like the Second Amendment, but guess who does like the Second Amendment? Democratic Party politicians. Why? Because it works to protect human beings. Every, God forbid, tragedy, they do this with a number of topics, but every tragedy, you see, if there were more laws, lives would be saved. The madman criminal doesn't abide by laws, genius. That's why Democratic Party politicians have armed security details, because they know very well people who intent on breaking the law don't follow laws. It's basic logic. It's basic logic.
Runs in the 7 figures. She doesn't care about the state of New York City or its everyday citizenry because she lives 1,000 feet above them with her own private security detail, cars, airplanes, and transportation. She doesn't ever go down the street and see the criminality of her own conduct. And that's the dichotomy between everyday citizens and what we have just seen happen to Donald J. Trump. And I think people across America are viewing this as a totally unconstitutional act that must be vindicated by the appellate courts. Otherwise, we will allow the weaponization of justice to be completed and rig presidential elections, and that can't stand.
Before we go, from a financial and economic perspective, this woman and this judge used a law that does not require fraudulent intent. You don't have to prove, you don't have to allege losses. We just lost cash. At a time that businesses are leaving New York. Yeah.
Only Donald Trump could be convicted of a crime where there was literally no victim. Like people, like corporations and banks in New York are desperate to do business with Trump. That's why I like when Democrats, he was a terrible businessman. Like, no, he's not. He can get $1 billion loan tomorrow. Could you? Probably not. How many billionaires can get $1 billion loan tomorrow? Maybe there are a number of them, but Trump is one of them. And so they say, he's a bad businessman. Well, he's still a billionaire and he's a 2-time president. Pretty good. You're doing pretty good in life if you're a 2-time president billionaire. It's not a bad life. Thank God he lived. And unfortunately, that terrible tragedy where a firefighter lost his life saving his family. Interesting how the New York Times and Washington Post and others don't do any investigative journalism to find out what happened. Okay, that's also very bizarre. There should be investigative journalism to find out why all the investigative journalists haven't investigated what happened with Trump. But anyway, this is a blast from the past. And this is Kash Patel talking about the Durham probe. But the Durham probe, we didn't have. See, in hindsight, Barr was never going to do. Sessions was like an abomination, and Barr was never going to really do anything other than the bare minimum. And so the next special counsel won't be the Durham probe. It'll be a special counsel and a Department of Justice and an Attorney General and Kash Patel heading the largest intel agencies in the world, or intel agency, all intent with finding out all the treachery, all the corruption, all the illegal activity in setting up and framing Trump. Okay, Trump did not work with the Kremlin. Okay, Trump did not commit an FEC crime. These are like if you know anything about politics, you understand he didn't do those things. But he was indicted and convicted. How did that happen? Well, people probably broke the law. Probably a number of people broke the law.
Welcome back. We are back with former prosecutor and former Pentagon Chief of Staff, Kash Patel. Kash, I want to know from you when you believe the FBI figured out that the lies were coming from the Clinton campaign. I know that in January 25th, 6th, and 7th, the FBI did meetings with the subsource on what exactly was in the dossier, and at that time they told them that it was garbage and they made it up. They had beers and embellished. But when do you believe the FBI figured out that all of this was just one political campaign trying to take down another?
I think they knew right away in the documents that we put out in the Nunes investigation, the Nunes memo, and the HIPSI report on Russian active measures show that the FBI knew right away because their FISA abuse process, now that declassification process is complete and your viewers can read it, that the FBI knew the information was fraudulent. They knew the credibility problems with Christopher Steele, and they knew the DNC through Fusion GPS and Perkins Coie were piping in tens of millions of dollars into the machine. So
well, why wasn't anyone indicted? Because when on the witness stand, government officials sided with the defendants. So you're going to get a different attorney general, a different intel community, a different Department of Justice, totally different presidency. The popular vote is Trump's now. He has the House. I believe that was tonight. And, everything is going to be different. Democrats, when they governed, achieved nothing. They could have, if media somehow kept its influence, they could have had a monopoly, at least on the popular vote. But they lied so often, and then they pontificated about Trump lying. You can't really name a major lie, or like Trump didn't have private servers. Trump didn't have a laptop full of very likely bribery and graft. Where's Trump's laptop? Where's Trump's private servers? He doesn't have any of these things. He could never get away with the things that Democrats have gotten away with. Where's the example of the same statutes utilized against Trump, utilized against Democrats? Doesn't happen. Where are the Trump supporters at the New York Times, Washington Post, The Atlantic? There is not one. How do you win the popular vote and you don't have there doesn't exist even one voter for Trump at any of these major publications? How is that possible? How is there such a disconnect between the majority of the electorate and major media publications? Well, it's obvious. That's a rhetorical question. Because these publications and cable stations are essentially mouthpieces or echo chambers of the Democratic Party. That's why nobody trusts them. If you had the New York Times doing an investigation on Hunter's laptop, God forbid, or Biden's classified complete debacle, which he didn't have the power to declassify as President Trump did, or Clinton's servers, it's impossible to transfer top secret intelligence onto servers. If you had the Washington Post doing an investigation on it, people would say, okay, at least they're objective. But that's not happening.
That they could get up a FISA warrant on President Trump. So I think they knew right away, which is why I think the individuals at the head of the FBI need to be held accountable.
Wow. So they knew that it was garbage, and yet they still pursued a FISA warrant to wiretap Trump organization members like Carter Page. Will John Durham reel in any big fish, in your view?
Yeah, and I believe so. And let me just put this in perspective. When I was running large-scale conspiracy and fraud investigations, they took me 3, 4, 5 years to prosecute. John Durham's only in his second year of the most political scandal in U.S. history. So I believe within the next 6 months, look out for indictments against the folks like Fusion GPS and Glenn Simpson for helping perpetuate this fraud. And look out for individuals like Lisa Page and Peter Strzok. I believe they're already helping John Durham. They're cooperating with him to get the bigger fish like the Andy McCabe, who is the biggest fraudster next to James Comey. I think you're going to see these indictments start.
By the way, on CNN, the Honorable James Comey offered to testify against the Honorable Andrew McCabe. I find these things like, this dysfunctional palace intrigue within the wonderful intelligence community very interesting and fascinating and amusing. There's a CNN clip where James Comey offered to testify against his assistant director at the Bureau, Andrew McCabe. And of course, you had these agents linked to Democratic Party fundraising somehow, some way. And then you had people in the court system in New York linked to Democratic Party fundraising. You have intel agents and chiefs linked to Democratic Party fundraising. And of course, it's unbiased, apolitical, nonpartisan. God forbid, all of these wonderful people get indicted by Kash Patel and others. They will say it's an example of Trump being an authoritarian tyrant. And they did worse to Trump without any evidence, which going after Trump illegally is a crime. Okay, it's not Trump being on a revenge tour. It's Trump finding out why people set him up illegally.
Coming out on the individuals at the top. It's just going to take a few more months, but I remind your viewers, it takes a little bit of time to work these matters.
Unbelievable. And no surprise, the mainstream media gave them all jobs. All right, quick move on to
Jose, thank you so much. Jose, thank you. To my super chat, thank you. Thank you again, Jose. Thank you.
Afghanistan. What really is delaying the evacuation?
For not.
So you're going to have Make America Great Again, intelligence community, House, Senate, Supreme Court, executive branch, and Democrats have lost almost all of their influence. The only good thing for Trump Trump has momentum like you could not believe. The presidency, Senate, House, so presidency and Congress, popular vote, every battleground state, the Supreme Court. Democrats still have De Niro, Kimmel, and they still have their pontificating and condemnation and the arrogance, hubris, narcissism of wealthy Hollywood celebrities. So what do they do from here on out? Well, they could focus on inflation, but they caused inflation. They could focus on economic issues, but they don't really care. They can, and then Bernie Sanders, Democrats have, by the way, Democrats have abandoned the middle class, working class. Like, no, Bernie Sanders didn't even address the fact that he was cheated by the Democratic Party. He has zero right to talk about the Democratic Party. He was completely railroaded by them and did absolutely nothing to reform the primary process, which is the biggest absurd, nonsensical farce of all time. They shouldn't even have a convention. They don't even have a primary process. Biden won his primary. The man, I'm not a fan of Biden, terrible president. He's like, the only person who can make Jimmy Carter look like George Washington is Biden. But he was so bad, they ousted and removed him. And then they put Harris and Waltz. Waltz was like an abomination. Could you imagine Waltz anywhere near the Oval Office? But anyway, I'm a knucklehead. Blah. I'm salt of the earth Midwestern guy. Yeah, man. Salt of the earth man. Well, I like Harris. How come you don't? It's like, well, because of inflation. That's why. And the only way Democrats can ever reform is if they say, well, people didn't vote for Harris because of inflation. Notice how MSNBC is not saying that. Oh, it's this, it's that. It's like, no. Margaret Thatcher or Condoleezza Rice or Tulsi Gabbard. You have a number of women of color, not Thatcher, but Tulsi Gabbard. On the conservative side, Condoleezza Rice. It has nothing to do with the characteristics of the person. It has to do with the economic performance, which was dreadful. But see, if Democrats continue, it's the only thing they have. They can't be Trump light, which is my point. which is why Kash Patel and everyone will just gain influence. Thank God. The good thing about Trump will continue to gain, immense influence, God willing, because Democrats, they have zero concept of why they lost. If they ever looked in the mirror, it would be like Medusa. They could never look in the mirror. Why? Because if they did, they would then say, oh, we have to become more like Trump. And they what are they going to do? Start focusing on inflation? Well, then they have to change their energy policies. And they won't do that. What are they going to do? Stop pontificating about, this and that? And, well, that's what their brand is. The Democratic Party brand is cheat their primary candidate, pontificate, get celebrities to condemn, half the country, have all of media back them, and don't focus on their foreign policy and economic catastrophes.
To be our continued warrior in the arena. But we have to fill that arena with Americans behind him who are going to take the fight to the mainstream media, who are going to take the fight to the corporate bureaucracy that controls the swamp, who are going to take the fight to the national defense industry that has monopolized war and sent our sons and daughters to die for other people's fights. We are going to put an end.
That statement was traditionally a liberal vantage point. So when like people didn't understand, well, how do you go from Bernie Sanders to Trump? Because you don't want endless military quagmires. You don't want Americans to lose their lives. Why is that so difficult for people to understand? That's another thing. Democrats, if you said quagmires and wars and military interventions will last forever, but your sensibilities will be addressed, they'll be fine. They'd be fine with that. I've told people, then they ask me, why are you voting for Trump? I'm like, well, for foreign policy mainly. So what? Who cares? They don't care. And again, Trump is only going to get stronger because his adversaries are so stupid. We have the dumbest intelligentsia. The American intelligentsia was firmly against Trump. The liberal, wonderful, highly educated, morally superior intelligentsia. But they're a bunch of imbeciles for the most part. There's some really intelligent, wonderful people who kind of understood what was going on, but for the most part, it's like a gigantic cult. I mean, you have some within the intelligentsia or academics that are intelligent, thoughtful, wonderful people, and they just disagree with Trump, which is great, fine. If you don't like Trump, that's fine with me. But if you think he's a despot, he's an authoritarian, well, then you're ignorant, you're not very educated, you don't know what's going on, or you've never read a book on history. You don't really know actually what authoritarians or despots or tyrants have actually done. They don't sign prison reform legislation. Genius. They actually imprison people, kind of like what Biden did when he wrote the actual discrepancies between different people for the same narcotic. But that's another story. Anyway, let's continue.
To that behind Donald Trump, and we are going to do it together. What I want to talk about is you guys have been so kind to make Government Gangsters.
Feral Granny, thank you so very much. Greatly appreciated.
My book, a bestseller. I thought there would be no better place than to announce what you just saw, which is a joint venture with Steve Bannon and War Room Entertainment to launch conservative films back into the ecosystem. So Government Gangsters, the movie, is the first one, and it's coming out in the spring, just in a couple of months here. So we're CIA. That report still sits in a SCIF at the CIA under lock and key because she blocked Donald Trump's release of that report so you guys could see the corruption of their ways. The fight's not over. The coincidence don't stop there. Chris Wray, Rod Rosenstein ran the Russiagate cover-up operation, signed the illegal FISA warrants to surveil Donald Trump while he was president of the United States.
Look, 18 U.S. Code 371. If you utilized your post to set up Trump and your defense is, well, I was told to do so, or, well, we believed, that he was an operative of the Kremlin, that's not enough. Because if you all Trump ever needed was the political will to indict government officials who set him up. He was set up and framed. This isn't rocket science. Okay, he was never a Kremlin operative. You'd have to be a complete imbecile to believe this. They made it up from the very beginning because they couldn't stand losing. Okay, then they said he paid hush money as an FEC. That was also made up. Then they said he fomented a rebellion. That was also made up. Then they said he would fine people. It was also made up. Then he said, Drano. That was made up too. Then they say he suggested, he echoed, he colluded. These are all ambiguous semantic terms. They live within semantic ambiguity, Democrats. They alter the definition of words, and they twist and the meaning of words. So it's always the way Democrats have gone after Trump is this endless deposition where they don't want to admit the truth, but they want to insinuate and allude to Trump. Trump echoes the authoritarians of the past. Trump, according to former and current U.S. officials, tried to sell the country to Martians. How do we know this? Well, The Atlantic wrote about it. There's 50 former U.S. and current officials. 50 people have said it. It must be true.
To rob us of our single greatest benefit in this country, our freedom to vote. Do you know where Gina Haspel and Rod Rosenstein work today? Gina Haspel is a national security advisor to Chris Wray's law firm, where Rod Rosenstein is a named partner with Sally Yates. Since they left the Trump administration, do you think it's a coincidence that the architects of Russiagate, the greatest conspiracy ever perpetrated against the American people, are all making tens of millions of dollars together at a white shoe law firm in the United States of America? Good. Identify the problem. It goes beyond Brennan. It goes beyond Clapper. It goes beyond Esper. It goes beyond Barr. It goes beyond so many people you've heard about from the Trump administration.
This man must be protected at all times. God bless him. And it's just like he's going to be the next intel chief, according to the news. This is according to the news here. So I'm not, for the record, I'm not saying Chris Wray did anything illegal. I'm not saying anybody did anything illegal. I'm saying if a government official committed a crime, there's a special counsel in the future. And the special counsel will be different from the Mueller. Mueller probe was predicated upon a fantasy. This was predicated upon an overt, unending attempt by the U.S. government to set up and frame Trump. Okay, we know this because there was not a shred of evidence the Mueller probe found. All the rebuttals of opposition research, that's not evidence. That led to nothing. Whether or not that opposition research was obtained is completely irrelevant. And you're talking about the Democrats who actually worked with a foreign operative to develop the Steele dossier. But this is just, Kash Patel is just one person. You have the Attorney General. You have the next bureau. Director. You have the next Central Intelligence Director. Could be Kash Patel. You have the next National Security Director. You have the next ODNI Chief. You have the next, not only Attorney General, but Deputy. All of the positions under Attorney General. Okay? You have a whole, and then you have the military chiefs. And then what on earth are these journalists and reporters going to do when the entire U.S. government is firmly behind the Trump administration? So all of these reporters that worked with government officials, did they break the law? If you're knowingly reporting something that is completely contrived with the intent to hurt somebody, to disparage Trump. So it's very difficult to prove defamation or libel when it comes to them, like the New York Times is a big Supreme Court case. But then what if you're a journalist, quote unquote, and you worked with a government official to spread lies? Then what? Trump was never a Kremlin operative. Why did you write that he was? And where did you get this wonderful sort? Like, your information came from where? Oh, the intel. Oh, government officials during President Obama's administration. Oh, the outgoing Democratic Party administration wanted to paint Trump as a Kremlin operative. That doesn't seem like a peaceful transfer of the presidency. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen. It's all into the news. He could be the bureau director. He could be Central Intelligence. Either way, Kash Patel will be a very important individual in American history, I predict. Give me your thoughts. See you tomorrow, everybody. God bless you.